I was 19, maybe 20, driving home late from a long shift, and the road was mostly empty except for a few distant headlights that disappeared as quickly as they appeared. I remember gripping the steering wheel tighter than usual because a car had just swerved into my lane minutes earlier, forcing me to jerk my wheel hard enough to nearly lose control. I didn't crash, but my heart was racing and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. So I pulled over onto the shoulder where the asphalt crumbled into gravel. I kept the engine running, the headlights on, and I leaned forward trying to steady my breathing while staring at the empty stretch ahead. That's when I noticed headlights pulling in behind me, slow and deliberate, and I checked my mirror to see a plain white van stopping just a few feet back. The engine of the van idled loudly, and after a moment, the driver's door opened and a man stepped out, closing it quietly behind him. He walked toward my car at a steady pace, not rushed, but not hesitant either, and I quickly locked my doors without turning off the engine. When he reached my window, I cracked it just enough to hear him, and he asked if I was okay in a calm, almost rehearsed tone. I told him I was fine, just shaken from a near accident, and I tried to keep my voice steady while avoiding eye contact for too long. He leaned slightly closer to the window, and he said I shouldn't sit out here alone because it wasn't safe. Then he gestured back toward his van. He told me his wife and kids were inside, and he offered for me to come sit with them until I felt better. Speaking like it was the most normal suggestion in the world. I glanced in my rearview mirror again, and I saw nothing behind him but the dark interior of the van with no movement, no silhouettes, and no sign of anyone else. I told him no, that I was fine where I was, and I thanked him, hoping he would take the hint and leave. He didn't leave, and instead he repeated the offer, this time a little more firmly, like he expected me to change my mind. I kept my hand on the gear shift, ready to drive off if I had to, and I told him again that I was okay and just needed a minute. He shifted his stance slightly, and I noticed how close he was standing to my door, close enough that I couldn't open it even if I wanted to. He said it wasn't safe to stay alone, and his voice lost some of its softness as he insisted I get into the van with his family. I looked again, more carefully this time, and I realized the back windows of the van were completely covered from the inside. I told him my parents were expecting me and I needed to go, and I started to move my foot toward the gas. He placed his hand flat against my window, not hitting it, but pressing it, and his face was close enough that I could see the change in his expression. He told me I shouldn't drive when I was shaken, and he repeated again that I should come sit with them, his tone now low and controlled. I shook my head and said no, louder this time, and I shifted the car into drive. As I began to pull forward, he didn't move right away, and for a second I thought he might try to open the door even though it was locked. He finally stepped back, But he didn't return to his van immediately, and instead, he stood there watching me as I drove off. I kept looking in my mirror, and within seconds, I saw his headlights come on and the van pull out behind me. I told myself he was just heading the same direction, but he stayed right behind me even as I sped up and slowed down unpredictably. That's when I thought it was over. I had no idea what was about to happen next. The story isn't over. Subscribe the channel to continue. He followed me for several miles, matching every change in my speed. And I realized he wasn't just going the same way, because he never attempted to pass me, even when the road opened up. I turned onto a side road I knew well, one that led toward a small residential area, and I hoped he would continue straight. But his van turned with me without hesitation. I pressed harder on the gas, and my car surged forward while his headlights stayed fixed behind me at the same distance. I made another turn, sharper this time, onto a narrower road with fewer houses, and still he followed without slowing down. I could see his van clearly in the mirror now, and the way it moved felt controlled, like he had done this before and knew exactly how close to stay. I reached for my phone with one hand, trying to unlock it while keeping the car steady. But my fingers slipped, and I dropped it onto the passenger seat. When I looked back up, the van had gotten closer, close enough that I couldn't see the ground between us anymore. I swerved slightly, trying to create distance, and he mirrored the movement perfectly, staying aligned with my car. I spotted a lit gas station ahead in the distance, and I aimed straight for it, thinking the lights and cameras might make him back off. As I pulled into the station at speed, I expected him to keep driving, but instead, he followed me in and parked diagonally behind me, blocking my exit. I slammed the car into park, and I locked the doors again, even though they were already locked. And I grabbed my phone with shaking hands. He stepped out of the van immediately, faster this time, and he started walking toward my driver's side door with purpose. I tried to start the car again to move, but I realized too late that his van was positioned too close behind me for me to reverse. I looked toward the store entrance, but it was closed, the lights on inside, but the doors locked, and there was no one around. He reached my window again, and he knocked this time harder, and he told me to open the door because I needed help. I shook my head and held my phone up, pretending I was calling someone, and I shouted that I didn't need anything. His expression changed completely, and he moved around the front of my car, scanning quickly like he was checking for anyone else nearby. Then he went back to his van, and for a brief second, I thought he was leaving, but instead, he opened the side door. From where I sat, I could see inside clearly now, and there was no wife, no kids, just empty space, and something dark on the floor that I couldn't fully make out. He reached inside and pulled something out of view, and then he started walking back toward me again, faster than before. I realized staying in the car wouldn't keep me safe if he broke the window. So I made a sudden decision and unlocked the passenger door instead. I threw it open and ran out from the other side, sprinting toward the back of the station where there was a narrow alley between buildings. I heard his footsteps behind me, heavy and fast, closing the distance quickly as I ran without looking back. I slipped on loose gravel and hit the ground hard, and before I could get up, his hand grabbed my ankle and dragged me back. I kicked and twisted, trying to break free, but his grip tightened and he pulled me toward the van. The last thing I saw was the open side door and the dark interior waiting as he forced me inside, and the engine starting again seconds later as the van drove away from the empty station. One last question. If you were in her place at that moment, would you have done the same? Be honest. What does her choice deserve out of 10? Subscribe now. The best story is coming next.